hospital and get some fomentations, couldn't we? They'd say, what are you talking about? Now, by the way, you can get them at Harvard Medical School. Because you see, God's truth is truth. And one way or another, it comes back. If we go to Seventh-day Adventist hospitals, can we get them? Pretty rare that you could find anything like that, right? So we've taken God's medical work and we've taken it and set it aside, and we then went to follow another one, right? Because we wanted to be like the world. Why did the children of Israel want a king? They wanted to be like the world around them. So they said, can't we have a king like the world? And what did they begin to do? Lose sight of what God was like. Now, could we take up the world's medical work and lose sight of what God is like? Now, not only do we lose sight of what God is like, but does the world system work? Does it work? You know, there's a man named Dr. Oz. You've heard his name before, right? One of the leading cardiologists in America. Not a Seventh-day Adventist. Big article in the New York Times telling about angioplasty, stents, and bypass surgery. Have you heard of those three things before? And what does he say about them in the New York Times? They're all not only a waste of time, they're actually detrimental to your health. So what's he doing with his practice now? What's he teaching people? Change your diet. Can you imagine? Who told us that? Now, you know, in this church, as well as many churches that you go to, I tell my children, the first part of the service is called the organ recital. The organ recital is talking about all of the disastrous diseases in the church. Why do we have all those disastrous diseases in the church? Because we're ignoring the health message that God gave us. And we've gone with this message of, I'm going to go follow the world system to get my health. Does it work? Is it working for the world? The leaders in the world, it's not even prophetic anymore. Is it prophetic anymore to tell people not to eat meat? Is that prophecy? That prophecy has already come and gone. Now we have the leading world scientists telling us that we're going in the wrong direction. And there's many powerful presentations out there warning people. So now we're not fighting against Bible, we're not fighting against prophecy. What are we fighting against now? Science, common sense. By the way, who was it that told us that it would be unsafe to use animal products? Who told us that? Anybody? Somebody here can tell me? Ellen White? How many of you heard in the Bible a scripture quoted by Jesus that said in the last days will come pestilence? Anybody heard that before? Where's that from? It's from the Old Testament. And Jesus quoted it in the New Testament, right? And what does pestilence mean? Who can tell me what pestilence means? Yes, of course my children can tell me, but that wouldn't be helpful. Pestilence, if you look it up in Strong's Concordance, is what? Murrain, M-U-R-R-A-I-N. If you look up murrain in your dictionary, what does it say? Disease in animals that will kill people. So where's that from? The Old Testament, and quoted in the New Testament by who? Jesus. And then, when we did not read it or understand it or follow it in the Bible, he sent a prophet to reinforce it. Why does the prophet tell us what's in the Bible? Because we don't read it ourselves, right? And so, what did we do with the prophet's warnings? Put them out in the back 40. And so, we now have the consequences. Now, did God say, when did he say pestilence was going to come? In the last days. Now, do we agree that we're living in the last days? Do people pretty much recognize that anywhere you go? Among any community? They see, something's wrong. Things are changing. Something's vastly different. And so we're living in the last days. And where was it particularly that this pestilence was going to occur? In the last days. Are we there? We're there. And are people suffering as a result of that? Yes, they are. And who has the message that God gave them to warn people about these things? We do. But what have we been told about these messages? We're told that they are not applicable to today, right? They're not as important now. Because now we have something called miracle drugs, right? What did God say to leave out of medical missionary work? Drugs. Yes. And so here we are today at a time where the world is perishing for a lack of knowledge. And who has this knowledge? Seventh-day Adventists. By the way, does God give his people knowledge, advanced knowledge? Yes? You remember at Christmas, maybe some of these children could tell me, at Christmas time, we have these little mangers set up, and there's a big star. And what do we call that star with its light shining down on the manger? The Star of Bethlehem, right? Now I'm going to ask you a little question about this, because we all know about that, right? Did the star lead the wise men to Bethlehem? Yes or no? To Bethlehem. Yes? Everybody agrees? Yes? We don't want to stick our neck out too far. No, it did not. It led them to Jerusalem. The star led them to Jerusalem. Why? Who was in Jerusalem? God's people. God's people were in Jerusalem, and God brought the wise men to Jerusalem. Could he have taken them right by God's people to Bethlehem? He could have. But he led them to Jerusalem. And when they got to Jerusalem, what was their question? Where is the Messiah? Where's the King? Now, who had been given that information? God's people. Were they telling people? Were they acting like they believed it? No. In fact, they said, get out of town. The Sabbath is coming. We don't want you around. And so the king heard about this, the heathen king, and he sent some soldiers with those big long spears, They're called motivators. And they brought the Jewish leaders before the king, and he commanded them to tell out of the scriptures where the Messiah would be born. Did they know? Yes, they told them out of the scriptures. They answered out of the scriptures. Now, once they answered out of the scriptures, I have a question for you. Did those wise men need that star anymore? Did they? No, they had their answer from the Bible and from God's people. Were God's people used to tell the world the truth? Yes. Is that the way you want to be used to tell the world the truth? Do you want soldiers to have to come to you with spears pointed at you and say, what did God